When this war began, almost no one thought Ukraine could ever control the skies. In early 2022, Russia fielded one of the largest and most heavily equipped air forces on Earth, a fleet that outnumbered Ukraine's by more than 10 to 1. On paper, the fight for air superiority should have been over within days. Ukraine had fewer than 100 operational fighter jets, most of them Soviet-era designs dating back to the 1980s, an air defense network that was largely analog and aging. Yet somehow, by 2024, the unimaginable happened. Ukraine's interception rate climbed above 83%, meaning more than 4 out of every 5 Russian missiles launched were being intercepted or neutralized before reaching their targets. What began as survival had turned into dominance. Russia's billion-dollar air defense network, once thought to be among the most advanced in the world, was being dismantled piece by piece. Ukraine wasn't just defending anymore, it was winning the air war outright, and it was doing it with precision, intelligence, and adaptation. By 2025, Ukrainian forces had achieved what many Western militaries had theorized but never executed: the systematic destruction of a near-peer nation's integrated air defense system, and they did it with drones, ingenuity, and asymmetric warfare. According to the open-source intelligence group Oryx, Ukrainian forces have visually confirmed the destruction of at least 18 S-400 launchers, 3 major radar stations, and multiple support vehicles, including mobile command posts and radar tractors. None of these were random hits. Each strike represented deliberate targeting and careful coordination, forming a multi-year campaign to slowly unblind Russia's defensive shield. In late June 2025, Ukraine's Intelligence Directorate, the HUR, announcannounced one of its most important operations to date: a precision strike deep inside occupied Crimea, wiped out key components of Russia's S-400 network, 291 Big Bird long-range radars, 2 surveillance tracking systems, and a launcher vehicle. The destroyed radars were the heart of Russia's entire regional air defense architecture. These high-powered, electronically scanned arrays were designed to track stealth aircraft at altitudes exceeding 50,000 feet and at ranges beyond 350 miles. Once destroyed, they left massive blind spots across southern Ukraine and the Crimean Peninsula. Without these radars, Russia's vaunted S-400 systems became little more than oversized launch tubes. Powerful, but blind, unable to detect approaching threats until it was too late. Even the S-350 Vityaz systems, Russia's so-called modern medium-range shield, began falling in rapid succession. Several were destroyed in Ukrainian strikes, and at least one was lost to Russia's own minefield after a launcher drove into its own defensive zone and detonated an anti-tank mine. But it was in June 2025 when Ukraine launched the operation that redefined the entire air war, Operation Spiderweb. It was the most audacious drone attack ever conducted in modern warfare. Using 117 first-person view drones, Ukraine struck 5 Russian air bases across 5 separate time zones, all at once. Each drone was smuggled into Russia months in advance, concealed in truck, and then launched simultaneously. The targets included some of Russia's most strategic bomber bases, facilities housing 2 95 Bear and 2 22M backfire long-range bombers, aircraft that had been launching cruise missiles into Ukrainian cities since the first months of the invasion. The attack reached as far as the Belaya Air Base in the Irkutsk region, roughly 2,500 miles from Ukraine. This marked the first time Ukrainian weapons had ever struck Siberian soil. Not a single missile crossed the border. All the drones were launched from inside Russia itself. Intelligence reports suggest the operation took 18 months to plan, and was overseen by President Volodymyr Zelensky personally. The result? Roughly 1/3 of Russia's strategic cruise missile-carrying bomber fleet was damaged or destroyed in a single, coordinated strike. The losses were irreplaceable. The 295s and 222s being destroyed weren't just expensive, they were historical. Their production lines ended with the fall of the Soviet Union in the early 1990s. Russia couldn't replace them even if it wanted to. Operation Spiderweb proved 2 things. First, Ukraine could reach anywhere inside Russia. Second, the age of cheap, expendable drones defeating billion-dollar weapons systems had truly arrived. This air campaign followed 2 key strategic layers: precision strikes to eliminate critical radar, missile, and bomber assets. The second, systematic destruction of ammunition and fuel depots that made those assets usable. Out of Russia's 20 main missile and artillery directorate depots, 7 sit within 435 miles of the Ukrainian border, and Ukraine has been striking them one by one. Each destroyed depot means fewer missiles, less fuel, and more degradation of Russia's ability to sustain operations along the front. With depots, launchers, and radars all being targeted, Russia's air defenses began collapsing under their own weight. Systems that once guarded Moscow and the Crimean Peninsula could no longer protect even regional supply hubs. Russia's aerospace and aviation sectors are breaking down under the combined pressure of sanctions, attrition, and resource exhaustion. The civilian aircraft fleet, owned nearly 1,000 planes strong, depends heavily on Western components. With those imports cut off, Russian engineers are forced to cannibalize working planes for spare parts, pushing aircraft far beyond their safe operating hours. Moscow once claimed it would produce over 1,000 new domestic aircraft by 2030, including 270 Mi-21s and 142 Sukhoi Superjets. But the reality is grim. By mid-2025, production barely registered double digits. The target quietly dropped to around 990. According to a RAND analysis, Russia's Air Force was flying at less than 75% of its pre-war operational capacity by 2024. Attrition from overuse, accidents, and lack of spare parts meant Russia was losing roughly 60 aircraft per year, while producing fewer than 24 replacements. Ukraine's growing air advantage has rewritten the battlefield. When you control the skies, you control movement on the ground. NATO doctrines have long emphasized that modern wars are won by whoever holds air superiority, but in Ukraine the equation evolved further. Whoever can deny the skies to their opponent, even without total dominance, gains the strategic upper hand. By methodically stripping away Russia's radar and missile networks, Ukraine created corridors of airspace where its jets, drones, and cruise missiles could operate almost freely. Western-supplied F-16 and Mirage 2000s now operate across the front lines, conducting precision strikes against Russian supply convoys, armored formations, and artillery positions. This has slowed Russia's ground advance dramatically. From seizing over 46,000 square miles in the first 5 weeks of 2022 to advancing just 5.6 square miles per day in 2025. And Ukraine isn't stopping there. In mid-2025, Ukrainian drones struck a defense manufacturing plant in Cheboksary, about 600 miles from the border. The facility that produces Kometa antennas for Shahed drones and guided weapons. The strike was surgical and it sent a message. No part of Russia's war machine is safe anymore. Russia's ground forces, deprived of effective air cover, are now being forced into defensive positions. Their armored convoys move only under cloud cover or at night. Logistic trains avoid daytime schedules. Even elite formations like the VDV paratroopers rely on improvised camouflage and deception to survive. Ukraine's air superiority has now become its most powerful diplomatic weapon. The same day Operation Spiderweb was revealed, Zelensky announced Ukraine would send a delegation to Istanbul for direct peace talks. Russian bloggers called the timing Russia's Pearl Harbor moment, a symbolic statement that Ukraine now negotiates from strength, not desperation. This same philosophy drove Ukraine's brief occupation of Russia's Kursk region earlier in the year, a calculated show of reach and resilience. Every successful strike reinforces Western confidence that Ukraine can deliver results worth supporting, even as Europe braces for the economic fallout of cutting Russian gas supplies. So how exactly did Ukraine pull this off? It began with understanding the flaws in Russia's air defense design. The S-400, touted as one of the world's most advanced systems, was never perfect. Its 91 N6E radar can detect targets at up to 360 miles, but it's optimized for high-altitude aircraft, not low-flying drones hugging the terrain. That left blind zones that Ukraine exploited with precision. The S-400 also depends on a layered command chain linking multiple radar types: Big Bird, Gravestone, and Clamshell, each covering different altitudes and ranges. Take one of them out and the rest lose synchronization. Ukraine's strikes targeted these single points of failure, blinding entire batteries at once. And when that happened, the system couldn't adapt. Unlike Western doctrines, Russian systems weren't built to operate independently. Once the central radar was gone, the launchers became useless. This was the essence of Ukraine's hybrid doctrine, blending Soviet familiarity with Western flexibility. Ukrainian engineers knew how these systems were built. Many of them had worked on their design decades ago. In response, Russia resorted to primitive defenses. Satellite images showed two 95 bombers covered in discarded car tires, supposedly to absorb shrapnel or confuse infrared sensors. Other aircraft were painted with dark camouflage or surrounded by decoy silhouettes made of wood. These measures underscored how desperate the situation had become. Meanwhile, Ukraine's drone technology was evolving faster than any military system on Earth. Operation Spiderweb exposed that small, cheap, and networked drones could bypass, or outright overwhelm, billion-dollar radar systems. The cost ratios were devastating. A $600 drone destroying an aircraft worth tens of millions. Even accounting for reconnaissance, logistics, and intelligence support, the imbalance was extraordinary. A single successful drone strike could erase assets that would take Russia years and billions of dollars to replace. Every S-400 battery destroyed represented a $500 million loss, plus the strategic degradation of the integrated air defense grid it once supported. When a radar node fell, it forced Moscow to either leave a region unprotected or reassign systems from other areas, creating cascading vulnerabilities across the map. Despite allocating nearly 40% of its 2025 federal budget, about 7.5% of GDP, to defense, Russia was bleeding capability faster than it could rebuild it. The Kremlin has already hinted that the 2026 defense budget will shrink, a clear admission that the financial strain is becoming unsustainable. At the same time, oil and gas revenues, Russia's financial lifeline, have fallen 25% below expectations due to sanctions, discount deals with China, and the high costs of operating its shadow tanker fleet. Ukraine's model, by contrast, is decentralized and self-reinforcing. More than 500 local suppliers, from large firms to garage workshops, contribute to its drone ecosystem. When one team develops a breakthrough, it's shared instantly across the network via Ukraine's Delta Information Coordination Platform. This means Ukraine can adapt and improve technology in weeks, while Russia's state-run procurement process takes years. The ripple effects of this shift extend far beyond Eastern Europe. NATO, China, and Middle Eastern defense planners are now rethinking the entire doctrine of air superiority. The traditional model, relying on high-cost fighter jets and surface-to-air missiles to dominate the air, has been shattered. Instead, Ukraine has introduced a new paradigm: low-cost, intelligent, networked drones operating at low altitudes in massive swarms. Traditional radar systems were never designed for this kind of target set. NATO militaries are now collaborating with Ukrainian engineers to integrate these lessons into their own defenses. The Pentagon has already begun deploying Coyote interceptors at around $100,000 each, but even those costs are daunting when faced with swarms of cheap drones that can be built for under $1,000 apiece. Europe's defense establishments are facing a reckoning. Massive centralized development programs that take decades to deliver may no longer make sense when small, agile teams can innovate in real time. These lessons are echoing across the world. From Taiwan to the Persian Gulf, China's military planners are now analyzing whether their air defense networks could withstand the same kind of asymmetric onslaught. Taiwan, meanwhile, is implementing a porcupine strategy almost identical to Ukraine's, dispersing thousands of small drones and mobile launchers to create layered deterrence. But for all of Ukraine's achievements, the future remains uncertain. Air superiority alone doesn't end wars. It enables them to be fought differently, faster, cheaper, and at greater distances. Ukraine's challenge now is sustaining momentum. Russia still possesses deeper reserves of manpower and resources. If Moscow can drag this war into a prolonged attritional phase, Kyiv may struggle to maintain its technological edge. Yet the opposite outcome is also possible. With sanctions biting, industries collapsing, and morale decaying, Russia could implode under its own economic and political weight. If that happens, it won't just be a battlefield collapse. It'll be the disintegration of an entire military-industrial paradigm. Until then, the world watches as Ukraine rewrites the rules of 21st century warfare. What began as a desperate defense has become an era-defining transformation, proving that in modern combat, innovation beats numbers and precision outmatches power. Ukraine doesn't just survive anymore, it owns the sky.